Welcome to the Deep Dive, a segment of Reformed thinking, where we take detailed stacks of sources, research, and notes, and we quickly distill the core knowledge you need. We are here to get right into the heart of the matter.
Today, we have gathered some really compelling material focused entirely on Psalm 7. It's known historically as the Song of the Slandered Saint.
The Slandered Saint.
And our mission is to gain a clear, detailed understanding of David's, his extraordinary defense. It's both spiritual and legal against a malicious accusation.
Okay.
And we want to meticulously dissect the nature of God's righteous judgment. This judgment, as our sources show, ensures with a kind of judicial certainty that evil deeds recoil upon the wicked.
And I think the unexpected fact that really underpins this whole deep dive
Yeah.
is that, we're not looking at poetry or just sentiment here.
Not at all.
This psalm is a specific ancient case study in divine courtroom proceedings. It's complete with these vivid, almost graphic metaphors that demonstrate the precise mechanics of self-defeat. Our goal for you is to walk away with this knowledge. When you're facing false charges, trust in integrity yields an ironclad defense, because the wicked are, in the end, forced to become their own executioners.
That's a good way to put it.
So, if we want to understand the sheer emotional intensity of this psalm, I think we have to start with the conflict itself. David wasn't facing, a minor annoyance. He was facing severe persecution.
Right. It all stemmed from malicious falsehoods, what one writer actually calls the sorest of evils.
So what was the accusation? And who brought it?
The accuser is named right there in the title. It's Cush the Benjamite. And this wasn't just some random person.
No.
Cush leveled the most destructive political charge imaginable against David. Treasonable conspiracy against King Saul's royal authority.
Treason. I mean, you have to think about the gravity of that in a monarchy.
Oh, absolutely. That is a capital crime. That ends with public execution.
And the fact that he's named specifically as a Benjamite, that suggests a deliberate connection back to Saul's tribe, doesn't it? It implies a kind of political alignment and, antagonism.
It does. Our material notes that Cush was likely a figure near the throne, which gave his slander massive leverage and weight.
So he had the king's ear.
He did. Some sources even refer to him as the Black Benjamite, suggesting a dark, malicious nature attached to his name or his role. And because King Saul was already consumed by jealousy and political paranoia about David's popularity,
Right.
the king would have been ready enough to credit this deadly claim of rebellion.
So the lie isn't just hurtful, it's functionally lethal. David's life, his standing, the entire prophetic promise hanging over him were all dependent on how this judicial crisis was resolved.
Precisely. The stakes were existential. This immediate threat, this political ambush, furnished the occasion for this entire composition. It's a detailed record of how a saint defends himself when his reputation is viciously attacked by someone with access to real state power.
And that's why it's called the Song of the Slandered Saint.
It is. It documents that transition from being wounded by the lie to appealing to the only tribunal that matters.
Okay, now let's look at the peculiar header of the psalm, Shiggaion of David. That term isn't used very often in the Psalter, and it seems to tell us something key about the internal state of the writer. What do the sources tell us about Shiggaion?
Yeah, that's a good question. The consensus interpretation among scholars of ancient texts suggests Shiggaion means something like variable songs or variable verses.
Variable.
Yeah, it comes from a root word meaning to wander or to err. And this is crucial because it immediately defines the emotional landscape of the song.
So this isn't the calm, orderly architecture of, say, a processional hymn. It's disordered.
It is intensely agitated. The style is described as erratic. It has excitement in the style and a kind of disorder in the sense. It's explicitly not so calm as other psalms. If you were to try and put a rhythm to it, you would find it changing moment by moment.
I find that stylistic choice so interesting because it shows that holiness does not necessarily equal emotional composure. David is writing under the pressure of mortal danger and a false accusation.
That is the essential insight here. The Shiggaion captures the reality that even when a believer has a clear conscience and trust in God's law, the human experience under persecution is still turbulent and uneven.
Right.
The style reflects the alternating emotions of the slandered saint. One stanza might, roll with the sublime meter of triumph, affirming God's sovereignty.
At the next moment,
The music limps with the broken rhythm of complaint.
that stylistic chaos really captures the spiritual reality of being persecuted for doing good.
Yeah.
You might achieve these heights of faith, only to be dragged right back down by the immediate danger you face.
Absolutely. The sources use that wonderful analogy. The emotional reflection in the psalm is as variable as the weather in England.
Chuckles. That's good.
It demonstrates that despite the spiritual certainty, there is, and I quote, much bass in the saint's music here below. The disorder is the disorder of David's soul, not his theology. He uses this unique form to articulate that internal wrestling that happens when justice seems delayed.
Proving that faith is not a linear march, but a tumultuous back and forth.
That's it.
Okay, so let's move into the defense itself. David takes this treason charge from Cush the Benjamite, and he immediately moves past human authority. He takes his case to the ultimate tribunal. How does he open his defense before the divine judge?
He opens by establishing his relationship with the judge and his absolute confidence in the verdict. He says, "O Lord my God, in thee do I put my trust." He affirms that this trust is never vain. He uses their covenant relationship as the foundation for his entire legal appeal, signaling that he accepts God's jurisdiction completely.
And the plea itself it's audacious given the stakes. He doesn't ask for mercy. He asks for judgment based on his record.
That's the key distinction. He pleads, "Judge me, according to my righteousness, and according to mine integrity that is in me." David is demanding a judicial review, not pleading for a pardon. He's confident in the law.
We have to stop and define those two terms, because David needed both of them to defeat this treason charge. What does righteousness mean in this context versus integrity?
Right. Righteousness refers strictly to external behavior. It means that regarding the specific accusation of treasonable conspiracy, David was externally clear. He had not committed the outward, visible acts of rebellion that Cush was accusing him of.
So his hands are clean of the overt sin.
Correct. It's the proof that his hands are clean.
And integrity. That speaks to the conscience, doesn't it?
Precisely. Integrity refers to the honesty of his inner being, the state of his soul, the heart that is clear of guilt or premeditated evil. It's the difference between merely appearing innocent and possessing a heart that is truly honest.
So his defense is comprehensive.
It is. He's saying, I did not do the deed. That's righteousness. And I never even had the desire to do the deed. That's integrity. He presents an honest heart and a clean record.
And to show the judge he wasn't just being glib about this, David attached a massive immediate consequence to his plea if he were found wanting. He accepted the ultimate penalty.
He did. He made a solemn self-imprecation, an invocation of wrath upon his own head. He agreed to accept the harshest punishment if he were proven guilty.
Which included what?
This punishment included his enemy being able to tread down my life upon the earth and laying his honor in the dust.
Wow.
The willingness to subject himself to such a destructive consequence, accepting total humiliation and ruin, it just proves the absolute certainty of his conscience. Only a clear heart dares face a trial with those kinds of stakes.
Okay, but an avowal of integrity is one thing. A good defense needs proof.
Right. And David didn't stop at just declaring his innocence. He provided irrefutable factual evidence against the charge of rebellion. He cited specific, loyal actions. He demonstrated that he had not, quote, rewarded evil unto him that was at peace with me.
This is what the sources call David's double mercy, right?
Yeah.
The two historical instances where he had King Saul, the object of this whole alleged conspiracy, entirely at his mercy, and he spared his life. This is his practical defense.
It is the ultimate refutation. He proved that not only did he not want to overthrow Saul, but he actively preserved Saul's life when he could have ended the persecution instantly. The first incident he cites was sparing Saul in the cave. We all know this history.
Right, in the cave of Adullam or Engedi.
Yes. And in that situation, Saul was incredibly vulnerable. He had gone into the cave to relieve himself, and David's men were urging him, "This is your chance. Seize the opportunity."
But he wouldn't do it.
He wouldn't. His argument was theological and political. He recognized Saul as the Lord's anointed, preserving the royal office even while suffering under the man. This shows that the motive Cush accused him of usurping the throne was absolutely false.
And the second incident is just as powerful. It proves this wasn't just a one-off moment of virtue.
The second time was when David found Saul sleeping in the midst of his slumbering camp, or as some sources detail, when Saul slept on the plain. David stole Saul's spear and his water jug.
Proving he had access. He could have killed him.
He could have. He had the access and the capability, yet he chose not to.
So the judicial point is undeniable. David delivered his enemy without cause when he had him completely in his power. He didn't just avoid treason, he actively resisted it.
It confirmed that he was scrupulously careful to avoid any appearance of rebellion against Saul. He constantly styled him the Lord's anointed. This established David's righteousness, the external evidence that his behavior was loyal.
And by presenting this proof alongside the avowal of his integrity.
He gave the righteous judge everything necessary for intervention. And this sets the scene for the judge to rise and dispense justice.
Okay, so David has presented his case. Now he demands the verdict. He calls for God to arise, O Lord, in thine anger, and lift up thyself because of the rage of mine enemies. What's the deep implication of asking the judge to arise?
This is a visualization. It's rooted in the judicial practice of the time. David perceives the Lord as having, left the judgment seat and retired into his rest.
Which doesn't mean God is literally sleeping.
Of course not. We know the judge of the earth never slumbers. Instead, David is grappling with God's long-suffering, the appearance of patience and inactivity when evil is rampant.
So arise is a plea for God to assume visible, active authority.
Precisely. It's an urgent plea for God to transition from apparent patience to the open execution of his law. When he says, lift up thyself, it implies rising above the noise of the slanderers, demonstrating his supremacy.
And then he asks him to awake for me to the judgment that thou hast commanded.
And that phrase, the judgment that thou hast commanded, is theologically significant. It suggests David isn't asking God to improvise here.
He's appealing to established law.
He is. David is relying on the established, decreed nature of divine law. God has already commanded that the wicked shall be condemned and the righteous vindicated. David is just asking God to execute the preordained sentence. He's appealing to the certainties inherent in God's sovereign rule.
And David links his personal appeal to the welfare of the entire community, which elevates his suit above just self-interest.
That connection is vital for the community of faith. He pleads, for their sakes, therefore return thou on high. David understands that if God returns to the tribunal, the congregation of the people, all the saints will gather around that court to offer homage.
So God's vindication of David becomes a reassurance for every innocent person suffering under slander.
Right. It gives courage and hope to the whole body of the righteous, proving that the wicked will not prevail in the end.
Okay, so once God is seated on the tribunal, the nature of the trial changes completely. Unlike human judges who are limited to testimony and external evidence, the divine judge looks inward. The sources specify that God tries two internal qualities, the hearts and the reins.
And this is what defines the strict, accurate, and intimate nature of God's knowledge. Human judges might be fooled by the external righteousness of a wicked person, but God goes deeper.
Okay.
When he tries the hearts, he is scrutinizing the secret thoughts or cogitations, the conscious designs, the plotting, the machinations, the planning of Cush the Benjamite.
So the hearts are where the malice is first conceived and structured. Now the reins is the term we need to really understand. We know this refers to the kidneys, but why is that organ used metaphorically for the soul?
Historically, the reins were viewed as the seat of the deepest hidden emotions. They are the inward affections, the most retired secret desires of the soul. They were thought to be remarkably affected by strong emotions, grief, sudden joy, fear, which made them symbolic of the innermost workings of human desire and passion.
Therefore, David is asking God to check his external actions, his conscious mind, the hearts, and his deepest subconscious, unarticulated desires, the reins.
Yes, exactly. This exhaustive search ensures that there is no possibility of hidden guilt. David is confident that the judge, who knows that all things are naked and open to the eyes of him with whom we have to do, will find his integrity intact, even in the parts of his being that are hidden from himself.
And that contrast is key.
It is. The wicked may hide their malice and their reins, but God sees it. David asks God to shine that same light on him, knowing he will be cleared.
The moment we establish that God scrutinizes the hearts and reins, the inner source of malice, it leads directly to this powerful declaration about God's sustained disposition toward sustained wickedness. The psalm says God is angry with the wicked every day. That's a terrifying declaration of constancy.
It is the unavoidable consequence of a righteous judge observing sustained inner malice. This anger is described not as a momentary outburst, but as constant, present, daily, and vehement.
So the source of this anger is his unchangeable hatred of sin.
Yes. God does not overlook inward wickedness just because the wicked might occasionally perform a socially acceptable deed.
And the Hebrew expression used here for God being angry is incredibly strong. It conveys this active, immediate displeasure described as very forcible.
It conveys the idea of frothing or foaming at the mouth with indignation. This suggests an active, continuous, internal preparation for judgment. We have to understand this not as erratic rage, but as sustained righteous indignation.
Right, against the moral deviation witnessed constantly by the judge who sees the reins.
Correct.
That imagery makes the judgment seem imminent. It's not a historical relic, it's a present reality.
It is indeed imminent. The sources are very stark, stating there is not an hour in which God's oven is not hot and burning in readiness for the wicked. The judgment is prepared.
Wow.
Even the best day that dawns on an unrepentant sinner brings a curse with it, because God's disposition remains fixed against their continuing inward malice. They may have days of apparent comfort, but they have no safe hours.
There's a common theological tension here, though, because we also speak of God's great patience. If God is constantly angry, why is judgment not executed immediately?
The tension lies in the timing of the execution, not the disposition. God's patience and long-suffering allow time for repentance. But his nature does not change. His hatred of sin is unchangeable.
So the volcano's heated every day. God is always ready to execute justice.
Right. The delay is mercy, the anger is righteous law. The moment the sinner fails to turn, that sustained indignation provides the motive force for certain destruction.
And this constant readiness for judgment means the path of the wicked ends in one of two inescapable ways. The sources summarize this alternative with the stark phrase, turn or burn.
That's it. Turn or burn.
The path of turning is the only exit repentance, changing the mind, moving away from that path of sustained malice. If they refuse that path, the divine preparation for destruction is described as intense and specific.
If the wicked turn not, the Lord actively, consciously prepares for their downfall. He is not passive. He is readying the instruments of destruction. He will whet his sword.
And one source said our own wickedness acts as the stone on which the sword is sharpened.
It does. It says the revolving stone of our daily wickedness. The preparation is meticulous. He also prepares the projectile weapon, the bow.
Yes.
God has bent his bow and made it ready. The bending of the bow requires effort and determination, proving that the judgment is a deliberate, sovereign action, not a hasty reaction.
The preparations confirm that the verdict of the wicked is sealed by their own obstinance.
Yes. And the aim of that weapon is lethal and accurate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The arrow is fitted to the string, ensuring that every single one is targeted. These are not random shots. They are, every one of them, instruments of death, ordained specifically against the persecutors.
So judgment may feel slow, but the arsenal is perpetually ready. It guarantees that if the wicked person refuses to change course, destruction is not only probable, it is certain and tailored to their transgression.
So, David now shifts focus from the judge's preparation to the actual, visible mechanism of the wicked's defeat. The core concept here is judicial certainty in retaliation.
Right.
The destructive energy invested by the wicked recoils directly upon themselves, causing this self-inflicted defeat. It's a closed legal loop.
The wicked person doesn't need God to lift a finger to destroy them. They do it themselves through the application of their own malicious plans. They are richly rewarded by being paid in his own coin.
The essence of the judgment is that the tools intended to destroy the righteous become the instruments of the persecutor's own ruin.
That's it. All the effort Cush the Benjamite put into slandering David actually seals Cush's own fate.
The labor invested in malice is never neutral.
Never. It has to produce a result. And if it's aimed at the upright, God ensures the output is always self-destructive. Well, let's look closely at the three figures David uses to illustrate this boomerang effect.
Okay, the first figure. It uses the analogy of a woman in labor, comparing the planning of malicious intent to a painful, lengthy pregnancy that yields only disappointment. This points to the immense, wasted labor of the wicked.
The description is visceral. The wicked person hath conceived mischief, which shows the initial inception of the base design. This concept is often linked to the devil, the father of lies.
Right.
But conception isn't enough. The malicious person then travaileth with iniquity. They are full of it, agonizing and pained until they can finally execute their scheme.
So this is high effort, deep, painstaking, intentional work to produce something evil.
Exactly. It shows a greedy, determined desire to see the plot succeed. Yet here is the irony that defines the wicked's failure. Despite all the intense labor, the pain, and the sustained malicious effort, the progeny of this unhallowed conception is only falsehood or a lie.
The net result is zero. All that scheming, all that painful plotting yields nothing of substance.
It results in disappointment and failure. Their own hearts lied to them when they promised good success. The sources clarify that the wicked intended to birth destruction, but they only produced wind. Their highly sophisticated, malicious effort is rendered completely abortive by the righteous judge.
And this frustration is the first step in their self-destruction.
It is. The second figure is the hunter, described as both cunning in his plans and industrious in his labors. He represents the practical physical exertion of malice. He has meticulously made a pit and digged it for others.
This isn't just a casual plan. This is heavy, dirty work. The wicked man is willing to invest physical labor to ensnare good men, hunting them like brute beasts.
And the detail of him having digged it implies he put his own effort and sweat into the trap, ensuring its depth and its effectiveness. He views the righteous as prey and meticulously plots their entrapment.
So what does judicial certainty guarantee will happen to this industrious trapper?
He is fallen into the ditch which he made. The intended hunter becomes the beast, having trapped and hunted his own soul. This is the ultimate example of being paid in his own coin. The mechanism designed for external destruction becomes the mechanism of internal ruin.
And we see this principle illustrated so clearly in everyday life, not just in ancient history. The effort exerted to maliciously injure someone else often exposes the plotter to risks they never intended.
It's a perfect illustration of consequences being tailored to the sin. The wicked person is said to have intended to burn a neighbor, but instead has set his own house on fire with the torch which he lit. The labor of malice is fatal because it is misdirected. The energy used to ensnare others ends up creating the precise circumstances for one's own downfall.
So the judgment is not arbitrary. It is the natural recoil of the evil work itself.
That's right.
Okay, the third and final graphic figure. This is the most direct representation of retaliation. The sheer force of malicious violence directed outward springs back to injure the aggressor.
This figure deals with momentum. The violence is a physical, measurable force. David sees the malicious force hitting some invisible barrier and returning immediately to its sender. The rod, the wicked, lifted on high, has smitten his own back.
And the projectile weapons follow the same rule of return.
Yes. The arrow he shot upward, and it has returned upon his own head. And the stone he hurled at another and has come down upon his own pate. This is a clear statement that the universe of God's moral law is designed to reflect and return destructive force.
This concept is immortalized in so many ancient proverbs because of its undeniable truth in human experience.
It is. It's the basis for sayings like, curses are like young chickens, they always come home to roost. Or the simple truth that ashes always fly back in the face of him that throws them. This is judicial certainty made visible and physical.
And whether the retribution is immediate or delayed.
Whether now or hereafter, the sources confirm that the evil deeds of persecutors have always leaped back into their arms. The wicked reap precisely the harvest they themselves have sown, proving that sustained malice is the most dangerous path to take.
Okay, so the vision of the wicked self-destruction is complete, and the focus returns to David's verdict. The judge, having tried the hearts and reins, confirms the clear conscience of his servant. David retires from the trial with a sense of security.
The verdict is absolutely clear. David rejoices that, "My defense is of God, which saveth the upright in heart." This confirms that God acts as the great defender, often brushing off the slanders and accusations through divine providence.
So the righteous person isn't relying on self-defense, but on God's active intervention.
That's it. And this vindication sets the stage for a future of honor, contrasting sharply with the humiliation of the wicked. The future hope is that the righteous will shine in honor when lying lips are put to silence.
There is a universal aspiration of the elect expressed in that prayer.
Yes. Oh, let the wickedness of the wicked come to an end, but establish the just. This establishment means security, perpetual existence, and honor for the righteous.
The final sentence against all the treasonable charges and malicious falsehoods is the ultimate judicial security guarantee for the innocent.
It is the invincible promise that confirms the verdict. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that riseth against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn.
Which means the righteous have the greatest defense attorney and the sovereign judge on their side.
Their character is secure, and their persecutors are sentenced to condemnation by the fruit of their own deeds. The slandered saint is made secure by the law itself.
So the spiritual arc of the slandered saint, captured in this Shigeon, is defined by this movement.
It is. It begins with urgent prayer and established trust. It proceeds through the rigorous avowal of innocence and judicial defense, and it culminates in ultimate praise.
It is a logical conclusion. Once the judgment of the wicked is confirmed and the righteous are established, the only proper response is celebratory worship. The righteous end their trial singing a hymn of praise to his righteous God.
They recognize that this praise is their eternal work and their present pleasure. The entire psalm reveals a stark contrast. The meticulously difficult, painful labor of the wicked yields only falsehood, abortion, and self-entrapment.
And conversely, the persecuted saint, having simply rested in trust and maintained integrity before the judge, retires with a clear conscience, celebrating God's justice.
Yes. The deliverance of the upright, set against the guaranteed self-destruction of Cush the Benjamite and all like him, provides the ultimate theme for song.
We have finished our deep dive into Psalm 7, the Song of the Slandered Saint. The core judicial reality is this. Malice requires tremendous effort, and the energy invested in that destruction will, with absolute certainty, boomerang back upon the aggressor.
The wicked are inevitably their own worst enemies. They fulfill their own sentence through the mechanics of the trap they built.
And David's experience provides a clear template for you when you're facing any false accusation. Approach the judge with integrity in your heart and righteousness in your actions. State the evidence of loyal behavior, and trust the rigorous scrutiny of the one who tries the hearts and the reins.
Your defense is secured by God's constant judicial nature.
And so, we leave you with this provocative thought to consider. The judicial outcome for David was so clear and immediate that it became a national song of victory. If the evil deeds of persecutors have always leaped back into their arms through the principles of divine law, what unrecognized boomerangs, what unintended self-destructive consequences are currently in the air in our own lives, waiting for the righteous judge to call them home. We are all constantly shaping our own consequences, and the judge is always sitting high above, ready to rule.